So many lines from Elvis are just hilarious here. Like his whole like, I'm gonna be a daddy is like amazing. I love it.
I'm gonna be a daddy.
Why did no one tell me that Priscilla was this good?
Black hair and more eye makeup.
I was so excited for this movie. I was like this movie's #1 hype man. I love the trailer. I love Jacob Elordi. I love Sofia Coppola. I was like, here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. But then it came out in America way before it came out here in Australia, right? And for some reason, American audiences seemed really impartial to it. So I kind of forgot about it and went, oh, I guess it's not that good. I'll get to it when I get to it. And I finally got to it and I went, oh, this is one of my favorite movies of 2023. Why is no one talking about how good this movie is? On top of that, why is this movie being completely ignored by the Golden Globes and the Oscars? I just can't believe I almost didn't see it because no one's talking about it. Now, first off, my favorite thing about the movie is how the story is told. You can't really spoil this movie because all this movie really is a relationship between Elvis and Priscilla starts. You then watch her kind of in this toxic, distant, lonely, isolating relationship for an hour and a half, and then she leaves the relationship. That's it. That's the whole movie. But what I love about this movie is how slight it is. You see Elvis the way Priscilla sees Elvis. You look at the film Elvis, right, from a year or two ago, and it is bombastic, it is loud, he looks like a superhero, he's like a legend, right? And then in this movie, you only see what Priscilla sees. So basically you see this guy that was really charming at the start and then started going on tours and going to the army and cheating on her and only showing up like a few times a year. And when he did, he was drugged out of his mind or he was moody or he was abusive. And as a result, you are left, like Priscilla, throughout the whole movie, waiting for more interactions with him, waiting to get to know him more as a character. And you never do, the same way Priscilla never is able to. It's just so well told. You leave the movie going, oh, I would have wanted more of Jacob Elordi. Oh, I would have wanted more of Elvis. I would have wanted more of their relationship. But then as you think about the movie more, it kind of dawns on you like, oh, that's what she wanted too. Like she didn't get much of a relationship out of her relationship with Elvis. She's left alone, waiting by the phone. He explicitly tells her, I want you waiting by the phone for me. I just think the movie's choice to be so subtle and so restrained needs to be commended. It never gives you these big Elvis moments. In fact, this movie goes as far as to not have one real Elvis song number in the movie. You get a brief moment where he's on the piano at the start of the movie, and you get a brief flash of Priscilla and Elvis watching Elvis on TV, and that's it. Aside from that, all the music in the movie is like a pop soundtrack. It's such a smart choice because you see throughout the movie, Priscilla isn't really allowed to be involved in the artistic process, and when she does give her opinion, he quickly turns on her.
Just something about it, a catchiness that it's missing.
Watch out!
This movie never plays like really dramatic, sad music to tell you that what you're seeing is wrong or disturbing. In fact, it's so blunt and so matter of fact that these really dark concepts are presented to you and you almost just like ignore them and gloss over them the way the two characters do. First off, the age gap is massively concerning, but you watch everyone around her just sort of go, oh, okay, or okay, whatever. And she does too. It's addressed at the start and it's very quickly brushed away. Very similarly, Elvis starts drugging her to keep her awake or put her to sleep very early in the movie, and obviously this is a massive red flag, but it's handled so matter of fact in the movie that you're like, okay, I guess that's just something they do now. Priscilla as a character is presented as so mousy, quiet, overwhelmed and scared that you never really get these big marriage story fights that you're waiting for. There's one moment where you feel like it's about to get to that point and it's quickly snuffed. You see how good Elvis is at emotionally manipulating her, and then the movie just goes on.
Scooby?
I said, woman, I don't want to hear another word.
Was there something you're hiding?
I don't have a goddamn thing to hide. You're just being too goddamn aggressive and demanding.
I'm not going.
I think you should. Matter of fact, I'll help you. Start packing. Joe!
Yeah, what's up?
Joe, get Stella on the next flight out of here. She's gonna go see her parents for a little while.
I love how the movie's rhythm is sort of to pick up this relationship at a certain point, show her being isolated and alone. Elvis then shows up, they have a dysfunctional moment, a dysfunctional fight, something goes wrong, and then we skip to the next one. It feels like what you're watching is a visual representation of Priscilla's diary. It feels like you're watching diary journals or notes she's kept of their different fights. You know, it feels like May 19th, we had a fight about the pillows. May 20th, we had a fight about me being pregnant and him wanting to leave. And honestly, I'm left here wondering if that's the reason this movie hasn't blown up. Is it just too subtle? Is it just too restrained? You don't get these haunting, massive musical stings whenever Elvis does something toxic. Again, it's presented very tame, very matter of fact.
Stella.
Yes?
Stella, come here. Stella, I've been thinking. You know, I have to have time to think. Things just haven't been right, you know. And I think it'd be best for the two of us if we took a little time apart.
You never see a scene of Priscilla opening up to anyone and being like, he cheats on me, he throws chairs, he's drugging me, he yelled at me, he threatened to leave, he got me pregnant and went to go. It's just so interesting because a lesser movie would hold your hand through these things. You're left here as a character similar to Priscilla trying to figure out what's going on with Elvis. Why is he doing this? This movie has an incredible way of showing, not telling. You slowly start seeing Elvis become more drug dependent, more of an alcoholic. He starts putting on weight, he starts eating. He starts doing all these things that inevitably lead to his early self-destruction and his early untimely death. However, it's all in the background. It's all window dressing for watching this relationship kind of crumble and fall apart. We are only really told and allowed to know what Priscilla knows, and she doesn't know all that much. I think the movie's subtlety and almost how slight it is its biggest strength. I commend the movie for being so restrained. However, you never get a marriage story or a Euphoria level fight that TikTok can kind of obsess over and re-quote and hyper-analyze.
What's going on? Why did she go back to Sweden where she belongs?
You know, and it doesn't dawn on you until the drive home when you're reflecting on what you've just seen that, oh my God, she wasted basically her most important youthful years, right? 15 to 19, waiting for a man who never called, never showed up, never slept with her, never made her really feel important after the initial inception of their relationship, cheated on her, and when he did show up, basically just abused her and got in massive fights and then stormed off. It feels like by the end of the movie, what you've witnessed is purely just wasted youth, and it's tragic. I have to give massive credit to the makeup department for both Jacob Elordi and Kaylee Spaney. They show age in this movie like you wouldn't believe. For the first chunk of the movie, I'm like, oh, Jacob Elordi as Elvis doesn't really look like the Elvis I knew. Oh, Kaylee Spaney still looks really, really young. And at a certain point, you go, oh my God, Kaylee Spaney looks like a woman now. She's shown her age as her kid is grown. And on top of that, Jacob Elordi's body starts to change, his makeup starts to change, and by the end of the movie, he looks like the Elvis we know. It wouldn't be a Sofia Coppola movie without amazing set design and amazing costumes, and this movie does not disappoint. This movie's iconography. I love the scene where they're pillow fighting and she gets a bit rough with him and he gets really rough with her, and basically the reason he does is he says, you're acting too mannish, you're hitting me too hard. Really good look and subtle insight into his character. I think the big thing here that we see in this movie is that Elvis wants Priscilla to stay this pure young child in his eyes basically forever. That's why he essentially has this weird Madonna whore complex with her going on, where he'll cheat with other women and the only time he seems to really ever have sex with her is to have the baby, and that's it. He completely ignores her otherwise. I love the scene where she goes up to him and confronts him about his cheating, and he basically goes, that's it, you're leaving, pack your bags, call the parents, and then the moment she diffuses that, he basically starts love bombing her.
Now do you understand?
You get the sense that this isn't the first time, and this is probably how they handle most of their conflict. It's also really interesting to note the fact that he's sleeping with other women but not her, and then the only time he really tries to initiate sex outside of when they first conceive their child is when it feels like he's finally starting to lose her. It's when she's starting to form an attraction with that karate instructor. She's starting to plan her exit. She's starting to plan to leave, and that's when he finally goes, oh, let me make love to you, baby, like no one else can. Really effective storytelling, and the movie doesn't hold your hand. You're meant to put all these pieces together. There's obviously the chair throwing scene, which is pretty like straightforward. It's probably the most straightforward fight out of the movie. He just doesn't like hearing any criticism from her, even if it's in agreement with him. He just can't handle it. And yeah, I guess the interpretation I got from this movie is that basically Elvis lost his mother at a young age, and he wanted Priscilla to always retain this really pure, really virginal like image he wanted of her, where she always looks the same, always dresses the same, and just basically stays exactly where he leaves her. Jacob Elordi's performance as Elvis isn't as loud, isn't as bombastic. It isn't really even focused on the fact that Elvis is a professional singer or entertainer. It really is just watching a broken, immature man-child just kind of like lunk around for 2 hours. I love in this movie they really go out of their way to show that he's aging physically, but you get the sense that he's almost regressing in maturity. He's getting more boyish, more of a man-child, while Priscilla is starting to grow and get some agency. By the time Priscilla finally ups and leaves him, this whole love affair they've had really does just feel like a waste of youth. And I just need to highlight how fantastic that whole Chanel No. 5 sequence is. Very early on in the movie, she's glamming herself up for Elvis, and we see her put a few items down, including a Chanel perfume. They don't really say anything about it. They don't linger on it like it's a knife or anything. You just kind of like see it, and if you're an attentive viewer, you notice. Almost an hour later, there's this insane payoff where Elvis is flirting with a woman and says, oh, what fragrance is that? I love it. And she says Chanel No. 5, and it completely breaks Priscilla.
I like your perfume. What's that called?
Chanel No. 5. Excuse me.
Again, if you weren't an attentive viewer, you wouldn't have been rewarded with that payoff, but I just love movies that really reward you paying attention. Also, I just can't stress enough how much I love the fact that they don't really use Elvis's music in this movie. You never really get to see him perform. Again, you only get really brief snippets. It feels like a blink and you'll miss it, like barely caught on camera thing, because it shows how disconnected Priscilla and Elvis are. She's not really involved in his life, and as a result, as an audience, we're constantly sitting there, similar to Priscilla, wishing we could get more of him, wishing we could get more of their dynamic, and by the time it ends, it feels like it barely even begun. Such a fascinating movie. I love how slight it is. I love how subtle it is. Also, I love Jacob Elordi's performance in this. Austin Butler must be fucking shitty himself, alright? Jacob Elordi just comes out the gate with an even better Elvis performance, even more layered, even more subtle, and like so many just like good, funny quotes, right? Like this isn't like the Baz Luhrmann movie where like every single thing is like heightened and super cool. Like so many lines from Elvis are just hilarious here. Like his whole like, I'm gonna be a daddy is like amazing. I love it.
I'm gonna be a daddy.
I can't wait to rewatch it, and I just think it deserves its flowers. I think it deserves more praise. And in this time where we're talking about like female Oscar snubs, I can't believe we're not talking about Sofia Coppola and Kaylee Spaney. It just seems like a massive waste. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know what you'd like me to talk about next. Have a lovely day.